Thank you. So welcome. It's good that we can be together, and after the summer, it feels like we've been together for a while because we haven't. So, so if it's okay with you all, I'm going to change the agenda order a bit tonight, so Chief Haberman can go first. But first, I want to introduce our new junior board member, Claire.
Nice to meet you all.
So welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
And so if we could just go around the room and say our name and our role here to help Claire have an idea.
I'm Terry Tim, and I've been part of this group for a while, and I work on particularly around policing issues.
So I'm Noah Evans, and I'm the chair of the CRB this year. And I also serve as the rector or the pastor of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Washington Road. So.
Hi, I'm Adam Flego. I am the vice chair of the CRB, and I was on the DEI committee back in a few years ago. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Glad to have you.
My name is Leah. I'm a board member and I kind of do more of the DEI.
I'm Laura Lilly. I'm a staff member. I'm not on the committee, but a lot of my work closely aligns with the goals of this board. So it's easier for me to come and answer questions than for everybody to have to check in with me later. So.
With that, I'm Keith Miguel. I'm the municipal manager. I'm Jason Haberman. I'm the chief of police.
I'm Ann Swager Wilson, and I'm the commissioner to the Ward 3 in Mount Lebanon and the liaison to this committee.
And I'm Margaret Izzo, and I help with community dispute resolution as part of this committee.
I'm Robin Vitek. I'm the director of Mount Lebanon Public Library, and I'm the staff liaison for the board. And online, Lydia.
Hi, do you hear me well? Very good. So, hi, nice meeting you. I'm Lydia Maceda. I'm part of I'm in my second year, and I started with the D&I efforts.
Jerron?
Hi, I'm Jerron. Nice to meet you. And this is my second year. So still getting to learn everything, but very nice to meet you.
I promise I'm gonna remember all of that, but
Okay.
I'll try.
Well, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So there's no citizens comments I see, so we'll move through that. Is there a motion to approve the June 2023 minutes?
I'll motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? So then we'll move to a conversation with the Chief Haberman. And it's my hope that we spend some time on this conversation, and maybe half an hour, probably be good. As some of you know, that when the DEI work was done, Tim was on the police engagement subgroup, and so I asked him to lead us off with a few questions for Chief Haberman, and then we can have a conversation. So
Great. Thank you, Noah. Thanks, Chief, for being here.
Yeah,
with
no
us.
worries. No worries, Steve.
You continuing the dialogue
Sure.
with us along the way. Tonight, we wanted to focus on the personnel policy,
Sure.
complaint policy, which everyone should have received a copy of from last month. Thanks for flexing your schedule for being with us.
Yeah, no worries.
One of the things that we talked about in the working group, the DI working group, and one of the constant points of conversation dialogue is transparency. So one of the things I really appreciate the way the police department has been transparent with their policies. This is one small section out of a large body of documents on the police department's website. And so you could spend many hours reading the policy. But thanks for pulling out this one section for us tonight. And I want to just ask a couple questions kind of to get the conversation going. Could you talk a little bit just about kind of the evolution of this policy, how it came to be?
So with personnel complaints, there's a few things that's really important to remember. Is the one thing that has evolved over the course of time with our department and others is really accessibility of complaints and really avenues for people to raise issues as well as commendation for police officers. So if you look at our newest complaint form, that's a commendation and / complaint form. So we allow for people to offer incidents of good behavior by our officers and excellent work that our officers may do that you want to celebrate. And then it also offers an opportunity for people to bring up issues that they may believe may have occurred during an encounter with one of our members or one of our officers. And when I say members, by definition throughout our policy, that refers to any of our sworn officers or admin staff of our police department, as I explained this. So as we've evolved from policing, we've realized that the best way to field these types of incidents and field these types of complaints is really to not give any extra hoops and really make it as easy as possible. And if you look in our policy, or if you have looked in our policy, you can see that anybody can file a complaint. Third parties, anonymous, you don't have to be party to it. Years ago, you had to be a party to it. We've evolved from those days. We've also evolved from days where you had to get a complaint form notarized or signed in order for it to be legitimate. We've moved away from all of that, where we've streamlined the process of really allowing individuals, anybody, citizens or people who may feel slighted for whatever reason, to bring up issues within the police department. We've got avenues within the police department under a tip 411 section, which is an anonymous way that you can file a tip. We've got a MLPD management email, which is an email that goes to police administration. We put all of our emails for myself, the deputy chiefs, as well as the police administration online on our website for everybody to access, as well as Mr. McGill and his staff here at 710, in order for everybody to understand that there's many ways to bring up issues should you feel you need to within the police department. Most importantly, what we want to really reinforce is that everybody who brings up an issue is taken very seriously within our police department. We have very high standards within the Mount Lebanon Police Department to become an officer. We have very high standards to maintain that level of status as a police officer, and we take that very seriously. If we falter within that at all, we will lose trust within the community, and we know that. And the fabric of what we do is to reinforce that trust. And we can tell you that everything that we do within the police department has to do with these policies. We have 153 policies online. We've adopted them. You mentioned that it is voluminous. We have, if you printed everything out, it'd be over 1,000 pages of printed pages. So it is a very voluminous policy guide. I'll tell you, through our accreditation process, we realized that we are in line with best practices. We really look to those national standards. We continue to really glean a lot of ideas and a lot of ways that we can really garner that feedback from the community through other ways, interactions within the community, such as this, such as Coffee with a Cop, such as other ways. So what we do when we get a complaint, and I'll just kind of speak to that for a second, if it kind of maybe helps for everybody's edification. So somebody calls right now and they say, hey, I feel like this officer, he or she did something egregiously wrong during my interaction with them, and fill in the blank on what they may or may not be. What would happen is this. The first thing that happens is you see in the policy is a supervisory review. And what that is that's an opportunity for a lieutenant, and we have 8 lieutenants within the police department that will be assigned a supervisory review. What they do is they verify that an incident may or may not have occurred. So essentially they're fact finding. They're saying, okay, this officer did in fact encounter this individual on this date at a traffic stop or at an encounter involving a domestic. And we confirm that that occurred. At times, we've had complaints that never occurred here. They were alleged to have occurred here and they were neighboring agencies, or they were alleged to be a Mount Lebanon police officer and it was not one of us. So that's the first step, is to verify that an encounter between a Mount Lebanon police officer and a citizen may or may not have occurred, and what may or may not have happened. So then the lieutenant will then take that supervisory review, he'll walk through it, he'll gather the initial data, body cam footage if it exists. We keep body cam footage for 100 days, and you'll see in our body cam policy that's the best practice, and we adhere to that. And then when you look at any other evidence, whether it's statements, they will call in the complainant, they will bring them in, or go to them. We don't make anybody go through any extra hoops. I've instructed all of our lieutenants, and we continue to. If somebody's at work on their lunch break, we'll come to you to get that statement. It's not something that we make you jump through in order to make sure that we get it right. After that happens, we get all the facts in terms of the preliminary facts. If in fact there's enough to rise to the level of a personnel investigation, that lieutenant will then forward it to a deputy chief and say, look, deputy chief, I believe that there's enough to warrant a personnel investigation. What that means is that the formal next level investigation of that officer. So if the lieutenant talks to the complainant and says, what happened? And they say, look, I feel like the officer was very terse and really could have been a little more explanatory in that situation. And then you talk to the officer and the officer says, yeah, you know what? I was probably having a terrible day that day. I understand that. I completely own it. I probably came off wrong. And that's a supervisory review and an opportunity for learning, an opportunity for training. And then we take that and that would die on a vine there. That would be something that would be right there at a supervisory review level. And we would then maintain that record. If in fact it was something elevated, such as an egregious or intentional act, it was a serious violation of policy, then that would be forwarded to deputy chief for personnel investigation, or PI as we call it. At that point, a full PI is then issued. I will tell you the exact number we've had. We've had 0 this year. We've had 5 supervisory reviews. And what happens then is the personnel investigation will then get investigated by the deputy chief. And that is a certified in personnel investigations and internal affairs. By policy, we have to have 1 individual in our department certified as an internal affairs investigator, and we do. Currently we have 2. And so then what happens there is the PI is conducted, and if we have findings, there's 4 options for findings. There's sustained, there's unfounded, you'll see there's sustained, unfounded, exonerated, or not sustained. And those 4, when you look at it, are really what qualify. That's really what's going to drive the next level of the next process. Then we work with the union, and we have a lauderdale hearing, which would be then a disciplinary hearing for the officer based on violations. And then at that point, discipline is then imposed or recommended by myself, forwarded to the manager's office, and then the manager signs off on any discipline that may or may not be doled out to that officer. I can tell you in the last 5 years, we've had 1 personnel investigation. It was the only personnel investigation we've had since the time I've been here. Everything else that we've had has been a supervisory review. And really, we've taken great steps to make sure that we maintain integrity in that process. So that's sort of the overview. I hope it sort of explains how it works. And I hope it kind of gives you a little bit of a glimpse inside of how we do things. And really, I'll answer any question about it if you'd like to.
Let me ask you one more of a big picture question, and then we can open it up. One of the recommendations that came out of the working group a couple of years ago was that Mount Lebanon became a part of the Allegheny County Independent Police Review Board.
Okay.
Our understanding is that that's not doable. That's not that's something that can't happen.
Correct.
So one of our questions has been how do we as a municipality ensure that this is an equitable, just process, that it's not just I mean, the way I understand it, it's totally held within the Mount Lebanon Police Department.
Well, I will say this.
Independent kind of voices speaking into that.
Well, so to answer that question, so the last PI we had, for example, we had independent counsel come in, a third-party counsel come in to review that case. We had another supervisory review in which we also sought counsel from outside of Mount Lebanon. So it was an independent person that reviewed that and looked at that. There was not a member of our department or a member of the municipality. Moving forward, we'll continue to use that best practice. We feel as though if we come across anything related to sexual harassment internal within the department, we feel like we have sort of learned that the best way to handle a lot of these types of situations is really to bring in that third-party subject matter expert. And really, it is worth our dollars as a municipality and as a department to really invest in that and have that third-party view of that. And we've done that, and we'll continue to do that on certain types of complaints. With regard to your transparency question, you're right. The civilian review board that you hear about is really, not something that would have any degree of enforcement capability within the current collective bargaining agreement. Because of that, it has some serious limitations. It really becomes, and I don't mean to call it a paper dragon, but it doesn't have teeth within the Mount Lebanon lineage of enforcement. And for that, it really is something that we won't enter into because it just becomes another layer of assessment of somebody that doesn't know our policy or procedures. And I'll give you an example of that. Our use of force policy is the lowest level of force possible to trigger a supervisor or to trigger a use of force report. And what I mean by that is this. Any use of force, and that's above and beyond non-compliant handcuffing, triggers a use of force report. Last year, we had 21 use of force reports filed. What that means is, even if somebody goes to put handcuffs on somebody and they simply turn around and say, "Officer, what's this all about?" That triggers a use of force report. If you go to a neighboring department, I mean anywhere in Allegheny County, that level of use of force, or that definition changes. So if you had a civilian review board that you mentioned, or something like that, you're not doing the same, it's not apples and apples that you're comparing. For example, another department may say, you have to file a use of force report if you use open hand techniques, or if you use or employ a weapon outside of your open hands. And then that way, the levels of force are two drastically different things that I just explained, right? One is completely innocuous in terms of the officer's use of force. One is using a taser, OC, something like that. So if you had somebody reviewing the level of force employed, it would be two completely different levels of assessment. You understand what I mean? And so, because our definitions and our policy is really the lowest level, and we wanted to maintain that, to be that way, because of the way that we train our officers, we want to make sure that we have that standardized understanding of what we're looking at. So until those hurdles are overcome, and really that's outside of my purview, that's not something that really I have any stake in terms of that review board or any part of any policy making or any design of that. I can tell you that, that's something that we really are going to stay with the policy we have for that reason. I mentioned to you earlier that we in fact pass every discipline measure up through the manager's office. Nothing I do, I only make discipline recommendations. The manager's office, as well as HR, is involved in every disciplinary decision we make. So that is another set of eyes that's looking at it, and another level, really two levels if you look at it, HR and the manager's office. Whoever the manager brings into the conversation, that will be looking and reviewing at every PI or every supervisor review we have. I feel confident, and I can say that our policies are sound. We're really glad to see a lot of the changes that Act 59 made, and some of these changes that the state came down with mandatory reporting upon separation for the 14 enumerated offenses for officers who commit things such as perjury, things that lie on the stand, commit offenses that won't allow them to be police officers again. We can tell you that within the police department, we take it very seriously, that we are professional. We take very seriously the level of service we provide. And we don't want anybody to tarnish the badge on our behalf. And so we are looking to make sure that people follow our model and follow our lead. And I can tell you in all the accreditation meetings we're in, I currently sit on the accreditation commission with the state of Pennsylvania. I'll continue to reinforce those levels of standardization, because without that, you really aren't going to get that clear understanding of citizens, understanding what police are doing because of that disparity I just mentioned and things such as use of force. So that's about, what I can speak to on that front.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question about the determination of outside counsel when you're bringing in a consultant. Can you just walk us through how that determination is made and who's involved, and conversation about, is this a time to bring in outside counsel?
Yeah, so, I mentioned earlier, we have a number of policies, right? We have everything from, you can't have a tattoo on your neck or hands to you can't, commit sexual assault. So there's a whole range of things, right? You've got things that we don't need to bring in outside counsel to review a uniform violation or a code of conduct violation that is really not rising up to the level of any, outside infringement or there's no victim. So we wouldn't bring anybody in on that. We would bring them in for something that is an allegation that could be a systemic problem, that could be a training problem, or that could be something that's indicative of a bigger issue. So if we see that and really we look at all of these violations and we say to ourselves, okay, are we setting ourselves up for success here in terms of, is this a one-off? Is this something that somebody said that was disparaging to another individual and they really just didn't understand that individual background, where they came from, they didn't understand what they were talking about, and there was a level of ignorance there, or something that had occurred within that conversation. If it rises to the level where somebody intentionally did something, we would then likely seek outside counsel to say, okay, is this a problem where we're not training our officers correctly? Is this a problem where it's an ongoing situation that we have to really be aware of in terms of, again, using a sexual harassment issue? Because I feel like what we've seen is we've seen a significant degree of success with that model on that front to say, okay, we can look at somebody who deals with this every day and they understand this. And they understand this in a way that really we don't, because we don't have a lot of these types of issues. So that's about what I can speak to in terms of seeking outside counsel. We wouldn't do it in terms of a policing issue, in terms of training with regard to, again, how somebody deployed a type of instrument or a type of weapon. We would use it in terms of something else related to behavior against other individuals.
I'll just supplement a little bit for you since I'm involved in the process. So when those complaints rise to the level of coming to myself and to the HR manager, we will pull in, the municipality retains outside counsel for, I'll say, labor issues. Anything from grievances to unfair labor practices to these types of potentially disciplinary issues. We'll review what we've been provided with that outside counsel, and then look to our outside counsel to say, hey, should we actually pull in another third party independent counsel for review? And to the chief's point, if it's a uniform violation, obviously that's not going to make it to my level. If it's something like gender discrimination or sexual harassment, those are the types of issues where we feel that it's in everyone's best interest to pull in that third party outside counsel so that there's no appearance of this is all being done internally. Now, I will tell you that one of the first things that counsel will do to review what the police department has done to this point to ensure that they followed their own policies and procedures. So that's, again, just another layer of how we approach these types of issues.
Other questions that come from the.
No, I don't have any more questions. Any questions here?
So I'm curious about the complaints in two different ways. One is, I assume that these are all like requestable under like FOIA and like all complaints are, or are they?
Complaints are not, because they're personnel matters. So people have a right to keep their personnel matters private, and that's a human resource regulation in terms of employment. It's employment law is what that's covered under.
Okay.
So there's really a whole lot of layers in terms of how it's the same as your job, anybody else's private employer. And we have another layer because we're public facing employees. However, employees do have a right of protection for their own records related to their own employment here. Same with, their physical. You can't request an officer's physical report. You can't request an officer's MMPI report or a psychological report. It's just not something that you're privy to because of employment law and HIPAA as well, but there's other things that really, that you're not privy to. As far as requesting information about it, again, we put and talk about all of our complaints that we've had up to this point. It's not something that we hide or shy away from. But I will tell you that, you know, everybody, and from the interest of cooperation, it doesn't make sense for us to put those things out there either. It's the same thing related to a criminal investigation. There's levels of integrity we have to maintain with everything in terms of how we handle situations. And so I would parallel it to that example. You know, if we were doing an investigation, it becomes an investigation the same way we would any other investigation. And if we want cooperating individuals such as other officers, and they have a duty to report, not just a request, there's a duty. And we give them their Garrity warning, which means that they have to tell us, they're compelled. And Garrity requires you to tell your employer as a police officer the requested question that I asked them. I can't use that in a criminal proceeding potentially. I can recreate it otherwise, but that information that officer tells me is under compelling, they're compelled by their union, by our department, and they have to give us that information. It's not a question of to cooperate. So that's been bargained by unions for the last 100 years. And you'll hear cases such as Garrity and Weingarten and other cases that really govern internal investigation with unions. And we adhere to that very strictly as well. And I can tell you that, you know, our union president's on board with every bit of it. So they have a union member present. They can't say anything, but they can observe it. And then we talk through it with them in terms of the questions we have related to the personnel matter and its specific in scope.
Okay, and then, so my next question is then for whenever complaints are resolved and they've completed that process, what is the mode of communicating that to the original complainant?
We'll bring them in if they want to come in and have a meeting. We will go visit them if they'd rather feel more comfortable in their house and you know, wherever they feel comfortable. And typically it's met with, up to this point, it has always met with, I'll say always, but the 5 I mentioned have been met with very positive results in terms of learning opportunity for all involved. Usually there's a lot of emotion involved in a lot of these incidents, as you can imagine. Sometimes everybody has a version of events and we sort of sort through that and we sort of work through that together and say, okay, was the officer overly emotional? Was the individual involved overly emotional? And then we sort of talk through that some weeks later, and we build time in the process to allow for that. Yeah, thank you.
So you told us the statistics on complaints. Is that published somewhere or how is that?
It is not.
Is that, Keith, is that something that you're regularly watching those, the statistics of the numbers of complaints?
I'll say it this way, as I did with Chief Loth, Chief Haberman and I have frequent conversations. I am always, I'll say, one of the first to be aware of any complaints, any issues related to the police department. So I'm comfortable that I'm fully informed for all of those types of issues.
How do you feel about this policy? I mean, do you sometimes think it should be different or it would be changed in some way?
I feel like this is a solid policy that I've ever seen. I mean, I have been involved in 5 police departments for the last 26 years, and I can highly speak from a high degree of authority and say that this is the most comprehensive personnel complaint policy I've ever seen. And I can tell you without any degree of hesitation, we take this policy more seriously than any other policy we have out of those 153 I mentioned. For that reason, it takes a lot to become a police officer here in Mount Lebanon. And when you get there, everyone's very proud of that. And I will tell you, the level of service we deliver to our community is taken very seriously. And not dirtying the patch, not tarnishing the badge is something that our officers take extremely seriously. We're dealing with a high caliber individual. We're dealing with all college graduates. We're dealing with individuals that have a moral compass that point very much north. And I will tell you that every bit of this policy is here to reinforce that. And to take all of those things into account whenever somebody does bring up an issue of involving one of our officers, when we take that more seriously than you can imagine. Because we know if we fail to do that here, I recognize if there's any degree of wavering on this, there's no way any of the 30,000 plus residents we have in this town would have any confidence in us doing our job. This really is a building block of how we can do our job. If we were to not have such a robust policy, we were to not have the trust, again, in this group and others, to say, look, we're doing the things we say we're doing. And don't forget, with the accreditation process, it proves, there's proof. What that means is there's 400 bullet points of proof that a third party, the PLEAC Commission, the Pennsylvania Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission, looks at. Every 3 years, they give us a reaccreditation review, but every year they will take a look, make sure that we're adhering to it. And they actually have to prove that these policies are being adhered to. So that process alone is a whole nother level. If we show them that we have this policy and they say, all right, you have 10-10, go up, prove that you looked and you did a supervisory review. And let me see that process. So our accreditation manager takes a supervisory review, uploads it into Power DMS, which is the software that they use. And they say, look, on this date, we had a supervisory review for this officer, and this would be documents to support that. So we can't waver on our dedication to this if we want to maintain accreditation in general. And then the level of trust and transparency you mentioned, Terry, I can tell you that we know that if we waver on this at all, there's no trust. And really, this is probably the most significant policy we have related to that. And so I can tell you that if there was an adjustment to be made, I'd make it. If there was something that we had to look at, we continually look at it, and so if there's something that comes up where we wanted to maybe redefine the, we've looked at redefining the outcomes. There's a whole lot of ways to redefine outcomes, right? But we feel like ours gives us actually more understanding to the fact that it's not sustained doesn't mean that you're not guilty or you didn't do it. It means something happened, and it means you got to do better. So if we just said not guilty or guilty,
Right.
then you don't have that wiggle. And you're sitting there walking saying, look, I didn't do anything. But the officer knows, I'm saying, you didn't, we're not sustaining this, meaning it wasn't intentional, egregious, or something criminal, but you had to do better.
I'll just sort of supplement what the chief said to the point of, for that one issue where we did pull a third party in, one of the things they did was to go through and review and look at policies and found those policies to be in adherence with best practice, but more importantly, found that the police department followed those policies. And I will, again, this really isn't sort of germane to the whole personnel complaint piece, but I think a portion of this relates to the process that a new hire goes through here. We have a 1-year probationary period. That's a long time for us to assess. As part of that process, that officer initially is paired with a field training officer who then takes them through a series of required, I guess you could call them steps, that they need to demonstrate proficiency in. If they are struggling or having issues with any of those as they go through the process, there's a daily checklist that is completed by the field training officer, by the officer who's in training. Everybody's aware of those issues. There is the development of a performance improvement plan if that needs to occur. As part of what we went through, that process was also reviewed in terms of what we do from a field training process. And to the chief's point, over the years, and neither the chief or I can take credit for anything but working hard to sustain the culture that's been created here in terms of the level of expectation we have for the police department and really, for municipal employees overall, but especially for the police department.
Any last questions, comments? Well, I deeply appreciate you coming and answering these questions
Sure.
and doing this public forum so that the municipality is able to see. And I know some of us are coming, and I hope other people come to Coffee with a Cop tomorrow for some more informal conversations.
I don't know if I'll make it a date, but.
Well, we appreciate it. Look, I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really do. And I think these are important conversations to have. And I welcome them anytime. And I really mean that. And I think that it's important that everyone understands that, you know, it's just like any other job or profession that, you know, unless you're in it, you really don't understand every part of it. And so it's sort of just teaching that piece. And so we are open to questions, and we, you know, I don't get offended when people ask questions. It's something, it's what we should all be here, right? You know, again, it's you don't know what you don't know, and it's very important to reinforce, you know, the things that we do, and it helps us to review things and really to make those changes, you know, when they're appropriate. So I do think, you know, what we've done as a profession over the last year or two has really helped us. And I think the state has really helped us in a way with Act 59 and other things, you know, mandatory reporting and PTSD treatment and things that really are meaningful, you know, as opposed to really, you know, hollow policies that come sometimes out of Congress and whatever else and the state legislature. But we feel pretty good about it. We feel like the cops we have are all worthy and meaningful, and we feel like we, you know, do have discipline issues that people aren't going to work again should they have them. So, you know, that's what we're committed to.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. Thank you all.
May I ask a question while we have the attention, Chief? Chief, thank you again, echoing Noah. I appreciate that. I think trust is a key anchor in open communication as well, and having a dialogue and having the openness to that. I work with policies as well, and I know, you know, reporting those, it could be something that can accelerate the brand, but in the trust, but also can also be challenging depending on the audiences and how people will interpret that. You know, is it really doing a favor just putting numbers out there without any context, right? What does that communicate and what and not? I am maybe I missed that, but just from my understanding, is it a practice for the municipality to have a hotline? Do we have a hotline? And if might be just something that it is for corporate, you know, institutions, but not for public. You know, what is your experience as far as having hotlines for public and government bodies?
I'm just to understand the question. Having hotlines?
Yeah, hotlines are lines paid usually for where people anonymously can open cases that then follow through a process of investigation and reporting and whatnot. Usually it's a paid service, so I wouldn't think we will have that necessarily, but because there are policies that seem to be replacing the guardrails of a hotline process. But, you know, most companies do have a hotline for you know, employees that are, you know, want to submit a claim or open a case.
So to that point, I will tell you that we do have TIP 411, which is an anonymous capable reporting system on our website. You can go there and you can report anything from a crime to a complaint. Okay. We also have, related to your question about employee complaints, if you're an employee at the Mount Lebanon Police Department, foreign or otherwise, we have very specific language in our policy and our code of conduct that you can report that to anybody within a municipality. It does not have to be within the chain of command. In terms of such as sexual harassment within the workplace, such as types of discrimination issues. So we've allowed for that outlet without retribution. Somebody were to call a human resource director directly and not call me, they wouldn't be subject to anything related to discipline for doing that.
Okay.
Department don't exactly spell that out, but we do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The only last question I have is from a topic that you brought up to our attention when you were first assigned to the role, which was the search for mental health caseworker that would be supporting 5 different districts in, you know, having as part of a staff. And I'm just curious to know if the progress has been made, what help is needed to move this forward? And what are your thoughts on the need for that still?
Well, so I'll tell you, that's a big priority for my office and for our administration. The manager and I, one of the commissioners talk often about it. I can tell you that a mental health care coordinator is really needed. And how to go about that is the $1 million question. So you were right. We did talk extensively with the medical rescue team group, those 5 communities you mentioned. We've done extensive background work. We went to Hampton Township and observed their model. They have a very touted model for mental health coordination. They have 2 individuals hired that are members of their department. They're not sworn, but they're non-sworn members. It works very well. They do a lot of follow-up related to related to things such as domestics, related to mental health, related to family issues. The municipality of Hampton has found, township, I believe, Hampton, has found a lot of value in that program. We have a meeting with Department of Human Services. Kate Vanderwide is the lead coordinator on the alternative response model. These are conversations we've had over the last 2 years now regarding that. Those pilots have been throughout the county in various places. She has an interest in possibly piloting a program out here with us. And so we have to look at the model that best suits us. And the one thing that the manager and I talk a lot about is we all agree on the need. We want to do it in a sensible way where it's sustainable. What we don't want to do is go down a road where we say, okay, let's hire somebody, for example, and don't have a sustainable plan to maintain that employment of that individual or the integration of that individual to our department. So it really gets to be what we found with Hampton, just to sort of tell you, because it's important to know. When you have this individual, they tend to get a lot of work, a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
And I think we all we all understand that there's, family problems, kid problems, and so what we don't want to do is jump into it with other communities necessarily and have that outgrow the capacity before it even starts. And so we're finding that may not be the best model if we get too many communities too early, and we'd never see that person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're kind of experimenting. As we've sort of expanded and contracted our ideas, we want to make sure that we're, following the right course, if you will, and, making sure that we're making a sensible decision for Mount Lebanon. Because the one thing I'll tell you, these programs that come up really fit, they're tailored specific to the communities that have them. Because some communities have a capacity to hire a lot more people and have more numbers, such as the city of Pittsburgh. And some neighborhoods and townships have the ability to have a shared resource because they're much smaller. So because we have to go with what the size of our Mount Lebanon is, we don't want to short ourselves, and then we also want to be good partners and offer what we can to neighboring agencies too. So so that's a long answer to a short question, but it's a very important question. I can tell you we're committed to it. We have had way too many of these incidents happen, and we know that we have to get in front of them and really have that care coordination to prevent crisis from happening. So we're committed to that. We'll continue to do that here in 2023. And, with any luck, we'll have a real solid program to springboard off of for 2024 and to really pilot a program that we can really make sensible for us.
Thank you. Count on us for brainstorming solutions as needed. And at some point, I'm curious to know if the trend is increasing or not. I mean, I don't need details, but I know you brought it up as something that it was personally important to you.
Yes.
And it's for me as well. And it's hard to get a sense for is it really increasing or not. We hear things that are happening like in other cities in America, right? And we don't want to wait until it's too out of hand before having support. So let us know what we can help in the search and in the model.
I'll add one additional thing into the chief's response. I've had a conversation with Mike Flanagan, who is president of St. Clair Health. We have a conversation that we haven't been able to schedule yet involving the chief to further discuss the issue of mental health and see what resources, suggestions, et cetera, that St. Clair may be able to bring to the table. As the chief indicated, he and I have had numerous conversations about the potential different models that are out there, whether that's a shared resource, whether it's an in-house person. We had conversations with outreach. We've had a lot of conversations. What we're trying to do now is our due diligence to make sure that the model that we put in place is the best fit for our community and is sustainable. I will probably tell you that we may go the route of a pilot program to sort of field test what we're proposing to move forward, just to make sure that it's critical that we get this right. So that's why we're spending the time to do that. And for any of you who love meetings like I do, if you want to tune in as we go through our budget workshops this year, you will hear further discussion about this issue, because I will tell you that I've just started my review of the budget, going through so that I can put together my recommended budget that gets presented to the commission on November 1st. And there is a line item in that budget related to mental health. So there'll be further discussions, and love to have CRB involved in those conversations.
Thank you. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it.
I'm gonna go if you don't need me, but before I leave, just to, I don't want to mess with your agenda, but I know you have Residents Academy on here. I just wanted to share with you that last night, after the commission meeting, a resident came up and was actually talking to Commissioner Silverman, who is considering running for his seat once his term is up. She shared with me that she went to the Residents Academy, and she was in the 2019 class, and found it to be great and a wonderful resource. And she said she learned more about Mount Lebanon and how we provide services, people that are responsible, who does what, which really kind of sort of fed into the interest potentially to serve at the front of the room. So, it's a great program. I appreciate all the work that you all do to actually have it happen. So I encourage you to continue, and anything you need from us, just let me know.
Keith, on a kind of related note, you wanted us to talk with the boards about the work plans for the boards going forward. Is there anything you want us to know before you leave the meeting?
That request actually came from Ian, because one of the things I get to do is delegate certain things. So I've gifted that to Ian. But what we've requested from all of the existing boards is sort of a high-level bullet point work plan, right? So that when we transition into the new advisory board structure, we can carry on with some of the, I'll say, mission critical work that you've already been working on and would like to see continue as part of that new board. So I think to date, we had only gotten to, I'll say, project lists from boards. So we're trying to, again, get as many of those as we can, because we value what you've already done. We don't want that to get lost as we transition into the larger boards. So any information that you can provide us will allow us to sort of have some of that continuity as we move forward with that new structure.
You want it out by the end of this month, correct?
Yeah, Ian and I had when I say it, I assigned it to Ian. I can assign work, but not responsibility. So always stay involved. We've met in terms of, we have a whole transition plan related to identification of staff liaisons, standardization of agendas, potential onboarding materials for new members. So one of what we're trying to do is to aggregate everything so that we can keep on our schedule, so that by the end of this year, we're able to sort of present the commission with here's where we are, here's the next steps, to give them some direction as they start to consider board appointments for those new boards.
Well, ours won't be with you until after October.
This is the first we've heard of it, so.
Sorry, I thought,
We haven't met since June.
okay,
Yeah.
we'll struggle through.
Okay.
But I just wanted to reinforce that, again, it is important that we get that, so I
I
appreciate.
think they have to wait until the next meeting to turn it in, right? They could work on it, turn it in early.
They don't have to, I mean, again,
It's not something.
If
you
we
can
can't,
do.
like,
You can't, you can't like vote on it, and say, we all agree on this, so, but, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. This has to be voted on.
well, it should come as a recommendation from the board, so we should know, we should have some indication that it occurred at a board meeting and that a majority of members supported whatever's provided to the
Yeah.
Right.
See, so I'm just taking note from my historic preservation board, because I think they were.
I will thank you all again, really. I appreciate the opportunity. I mean, if there's anything else you need from me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Later. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. We will see you then.
I heard he's buying desserts tomorrow. I started to remember anyway.
Cinnamon rolls.
So I'm gonna move through, let's try and sort of move through our agenda, quickly and, but also responsibly. So, Laura, do you have any?
I just had a couple of things to run through. It is Hispanic Heritage Month that was noted by our commission vice president yesterday in an official statement in the commission meeting. Also, our library has programs, I'm sure Robin can fill you in on what that is about. And then just a list of some activities coming up. Again, part of community engagement is encouraging people to become involved in the community. The artist market, we already talked about Coffee with the Cop, but just again, for anybody who doesn't know, it's 8 to 10 at Orbis Cafe. Very casual, no agenda. People can come in and come out and talk about whatever they want. There will be all sorts of officers there, officers who have different specialties. So if somebody has a traffic question, there might be a traffic officer there to help. That way they can have their questions answered.
Monthly thing.
It isn't. It was
It's like random.
it has just been random, yeah, whenever there's availability. So, but we
CRB
can.
hosted them several, what, 4 or
Yeah, we
5
haven't,
years ago.
hasn't won one of these for a couple of years,
It's been a while.
right? And our plan, my conversation with Chief is to do this one in the fall and then one after the
Yeah.
first of the year.
And part of that was the transition to getting a new police chief, because that took quite a while.
Right. And to get past the pandemic. The last
Yeah.
one we did, people were still masked and it created kind of a weird communication barrier. I think it was harder to have frank conversations when you had this natural separation. So even though we did have it, because we didn't want it to, go on too much longer, but. So yes, that's tomorrow. So we have the sign. If Terry, if you would be so kind as to take it, I can have the police bring it back, just getting it there. And again, we created a sign because last time when people walked by Orbis and they saw a bunch of police officers, they thought somebody had been shot. And we also don't want Orbis to not have business. We want people to be able to feel free to go in and get coffee, so. September 30th and August 1st is the artist market up in the Academy Avenue lots. Pumpkin Patch Parade is October 28th. Trick or treat is always on Halloween, 6 to 8. Our Veterans Day ceremony, because Veterans Day is a Saturday, it's actually on Friday at 4 o'clock on November 10th at the Veterans Memorial. We're lining up some speakers. I have a request out, but I believe the preferred speaker was out of town at the moment. Beverly Bright Night is December 7th. That's their kind of light up night, even though we're not allowed to use light up night because it is trademarked. Washington Roads is moving to, I don't know if you remember last year, we moved from a Thursday night light up night to a Saturday winter market. It was better received by the businesses because people had all day to shop. A lot of them said it was the #1 sales day they had all year since the pandemic had started. So they're keeping that. We're skewing the time a little bit. So I don't have the exact time, but it will probably end around 5 so that there can be tree lighting associated with that. Because that was one comment we heard last year is we didn't get to light the tree. So tree will be lit beforehand, but I have just been informed of an upcoming vacancy in my office. My assistant public information officer has taken another job that will allow her to be home with her child. So I am currently looking for an assistant PIO. That job is posted. It's a great job. It's a fun job. It's
Full-time with benefits.
full-time with benefits and yeah. So we are looking for that. So the only reason I tell you is to maybe have a little patience with me that some of my turnaround time might be delayed since I have to do my job and that job until we fill that. And as you know, our job filling process is very detailed and intense, and whenever we look for somebody, we take all of the proper steps to do it the right way, and that means it takes extra time. Uptown Unveiled, I just want to report on August 5th, when we opened the streets, since we haven't met since then, was a blast. We had hundreds of people all day. I'm not good at crowd estimates. I think my husband tried to say he thought there were 500 people there at all times, from noon to 6. It was great. We had a ribbon cutting. We got a lot of positive media coverage. It's been a long project. It's not 100% done. If you notice when you came in, we're still waiting for the railing across the front of the building, and there still are punch list items. But we felt it was time for some positive emphasis on the project and inviting people to come up and get reacquainted with their uptown if they haven't been here. So our business has been very patient. It's been a long one. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, I'll be quick. Biggest issue that we see bubbling up over and over again is traffic calming. People don't want to obey speed limits. They don't want to stop at stop signs, and they don't even want to stop at red lights. So we are looking at traffic calming measures for places in the community that really seem to be problem areas. The concept of traffic calming, because it's kind of a buzzword, is that you erect some type of physical change that changes the behavior of the driver. So it might be, a traffic island in the
We
middle
have
of
2 of those. Thank you.
There you
In
go.
Arden.
On Arden, exactly. Arden was one of the ones that we hit.
2.
Yeah, because that was a cut through so that people could avoid the light at Beverly and Cochrane. So we're looking at those. They're expensive. So we aren't going to be able to do but a few here and there. And we're also looking at doing an active transportation plan next year, which is the concept of looking at the roads holistically so that you can figure out where you should put traffic calming that will be the most effective and won't have the unintended consequence of putting the traffic on another street and causing a problem. Okay. Trash is a big issue. This year, we had to renew our trash contract. It went up by 40%. And trash is our largest contract. So we are frantically thinking about how we're going to take care of that expense. And we haven't reached any conclusions yet. We're getting ready to go into budget season, which starts November 1st, as Keith announced. And so that's when we'll start fleshing out what we can and can't do money-wise. So questions, concerns, thoughts?
And just a note that we have a few strong startups in Pittsburgh that are bringing innovation to trash collecting. I wonder if in the same spirit of experimentation, we could start a pilot just to see if we could reduce cost and set Mount Lebanon as an innovative green community too.
I'd love to talk to you about that, quite frankly, because Andrew Flynn, one of my fellow commissioners, floated the idea of bringing trash collection in-house. I don't know if that's better or worse. I mean, that was an idea. It hasn't been, we haven't put numbers to it or thought it through. But one of the things that we most objected to in the contract that we were given was that trash companies still want a single source recycle. And when you single source recycle, I'm gonna get the numbers wrong, I know I am, but it's like you only reclaim 40% of the recycled stuff. If you single source, you take it to a sorting bin and sort them, it's much higher, 60-70%, somewhere like that in reclaiming. And we're really disappointed because it's being done elsewhere in the country. So we know it can be done, but there wasn't any inkling for anyone to move towards that here. So that was part of this deliberations, I guess.
Yeah, I'll love to set up some time and schedule time with, thought leaders that are connected with those best practices. And then, so who should I coordinate with? You, Andrew, and who else?
With Andrew and myself would probably be the best as a start. And maybe Ian, we'll ask Ian if he wants to participate too. And I'll ask Keith if Ian is the appropriate person, but I think he might be, or Rudy Sukol too. But I'll go ahead and follow through. and see, because we'd love to get the conversation started. It's a huge expense and it's just not being done the way we
Yeah.
want.
In other like cities that I came from, we actually got money back from the recycling we delivered to centers. So we could turn trash into revenue generation.
Oh, grand. That's even better. How soon you want me? Kidding, no.
That was 20 years ago too.
Yeah.
The one thing we are going to be trying to educate residents while curbside glass recycling is coming back. We are strongly encouraging residents to still take their glass to the single source recycling outside the Kohl's or the liquor store, depending on where you're shopping out there at Village Square, or to the Michael Brothers, because again, that glass is recovered. So just A, don't put it in the landfill. B, if you have to, put it curbside, but if you really want to do the best thing for the environment, take it to those spaces.
That was my question. Was it still gonna be available
Yes,
there?
we are still,
Yes.
we
Okay, that's
pay for
good.
that in cooperation with Upper St. Clair and Bethel Park and Dormont. So that will continue to be there.
It's deeply satisfying to read the glass of it.
It really is though. It is.
But also part of the reason why we don't have one in Mount Lebanon. Piloted one here and there is no neighborhood that you can put one in where people are not woken by.
We can put it next to the pickleball courts, right? Because it's already loud over there.
Oh.
Robin. You're next.
Oh, okay, I'm not gonna go all the way to the end of the year like some people, but we'll just.
I'm afraid that we're gonna have another meeting, so.
We've got a lot going on at the library, you know, school is back in session. The sidewalks were recently replaced, starting the first week of school. That project is already completed, they did a great job. We have nice new sidewalks. September is both library card sign up month at the library and Love Your Library month. So all donations provided to ours or any Allegheny County library during the month of September are matched up to $500 by a generous grant from the Jack Buncher Foundation. So if you need to renew your Friends membership or you need to buy some books at the bookseller or anything like that, it's a great time to do that. And our teen librarians were recently awarded a state award for one of their teen programs. It was a live action role play and it was based on Greek mythology. So that was really exciting. They are going to be lauded at the Pennsylvania Library Association Conference in the Poconos in the first week of October. That's all I have.
This is your chance, and also in the future, you have this.
Yeah,
spot, so-
I'll have this prepared in the future. I'm just getting the hang of it now. You guys all have everything so put together. I'm but some things that I was just thinking of, I'm just gonna like spew ideas if that's okay, like random things that I'm thinking about as we go. So at the high school this year, there are like a lot of international students and a lot of exchange students coming in and everybody's speaking different languages. There are a lot of different things. And we were talking about Hispanic. Is that this month? Yeah,
Heritage
this
Month.
month.
September 15th through October 15th.
Yeah, I think like if anything like that would be amazing, and we could like try to make that like a thing, like kind of publicize it at the high school too. Because I know there are a lot of people from like Latin America, Central America too, that are especially here.
I know there are
And-
2 Brazilian exchange.
Yes, I love them both. They're amazing. I'm trying to learn Portuguese, but it's just not working. What else? Trash Environmental Club is like
Yes.
huge. They would love, we would like love to help with any trash cleanup, anything like that. And that would
Okay.
be so fun. Yeah, yes, anything like that, trash cleanup. They would love it.
What's the name of the club?
Environmental Club.
Oh, okay.
And the sponsors are Mrs. Wilcox. So if you need like an adult name, or you can just ask me, because I'll be there.
I'll ask
too.
you.
Yeah, yeah. And that's pretty much it for now.
Sorry.
Yeah, but if you need anything, you know how to reach me.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. I'm just sorry.
Thank you for being-
Double booked most nights these days.
Still light out. which is nice.
I know.
International and exchange students would be a great magazine article.
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
that would be amazing. We're going to a movie this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
would be
some
fun.
Greek movie, and I have a meeting with them tomorrow. It's like become like the best thing ever. Like they're like my best friends. They're the
Are you
best.
part of the global studies?
Yes, global studies, and I'm a global ambassador this year too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am Yusei's, the Japanese exchange student. I'm his counselor through the Rotary Club.
Oh, that's amazing.
Great kid.
Yeah. Super sweet. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks
So
for-
excited.
We got a busy schedule here.
Okay, so moving on, has there been any, more updates on the Ascend Lebo comprehensive plan?
So I went, it was a couple months ago, so I was trying to think,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can't remember everything, but Laura was there with me. One of the big things that they were doing was that they hired a marketing consulting firm to kind of try to see with like our new initiatives and like, you know, our wanting to make this like an inclusive community, like what can we maybe change the slogan and change like maybe a logo?
We're definitely changing the slogan. It was
Yes.
community with character,
Yeah.
which people have morphed into community.
So we had like a
with
couple
character.
suggestions with like,
Honestly, the
True.
biggest thing is finding what's not trademarked to somebody else. What is uniquely, yeah, every time we came up with something, I was very proud of my idea until I found out it was owned by Disney already. So Welcome Home was my Mount
Okay, it was a
Welcome
good
Home.
one.
I felt like that was so warm and
Something like that.
I know.
Disney Vacation Club.
I thought we should do something with like a tree and roots and like, like even like a tree, like you can still have the roots of like
Mm.
from the past, but the leaves are something new,
Mm.
something new growth.
Just do all of that. That's definitely not trade.
Right? No, that's not.
I do have a focus group meeting tomorrow at noon.
Oh, right, I think
Yes.
I.
So I will be there. I'm not sure if you're going to be available, but I will be there.
No, I don't really forum.
We have 7, so as long as nobody else drops out, we still have 4.
I have to leave in about 7 minutes. Speed round.
So Adam, you wanted to say something about events and event policy.
Yes, so quickly, we had, we tabled, I don't think we've met since we tabled at Pride, which was awesome and a big success. And thank you for everybody who came and helped. But that was kind of a one-off that we did, and now moving forward, it seems like the best way to be able to table is going to be coming up with a policy that applies to all boards as to how if a board wants to table at a public event of some sort, then this is how they do it. And that in talking with Commissioner Flynn, that was one of his suggestions, and that's something the CRB could take up. So I'm interested in heading that up, and I'm happy to take on help with that. But yeah, I think putting together some sort of policy that we can adapt so that whenever, I know as we're realigning the boards and all that kind of stuff, we can make it so that it's not a one-off process, and so that if we want to be at farmers markets, and if we want to be at, next year's Pride, or at a not light up like night up light, then we can have some sort of way to do that, and also share, I would imagine, amongst the boards too, so that's not always just CRB saying what's up to everybody, but having like the other boards represented too. So yeah, so if you're interested, in the interest of time, just email me, and we can talk about it. But yeah,
Anyone want to jump on board with Adam on that?
not all at once. It's okay.
I think we can like go, yeah,
Yeah.
talk about it.
Thanks. Okay. Magazine. do you have-
Anything to report? I mean, you've seen
Yeah, I
that.
guess it's just the same where, we would just give you suggestions as they come along, so.
Just a happy report. The magazine was awesome this time. I just saw it and I was like, wow, like it's just like more diverse looking. It's going in the right direction. I was really proud.
Yeah, and the website looks great too.
Yeah, definitely.
Citizens mediations, I know you did, we did some work on languaging.
Yes, right, we finessed it a little bit, and there hasn't really been that much this summer. There was an interesting issue which actually required some legal research, so that was fun. And sometimes people call and they realize this isn't like the right avenue for them, but at least they were able to voice, their feelings about something that was going on with the neighbor. So, and we've talked about this before, possibly maybe putting something else out, as a Lebo alert or something on another webpage, so I can talk to you about that, because I feel like there hasn't been quite as much as there has been in the past, so.
No, what I've been trying to do is jump in whenever there's questions, so people will, I'm trying to think, it was just 2 weeks ago, somebody was upset with a neighbor and said, where do I turn on a Facebook group? That wasn't our page, it was one of the community groups that I'm in, and I jumped in and said, just so you know, the Community Relations Board has the service, and people really were interested in it from that point. So sometimes it's just natural to bring it up in a conversation where somebody's talking about conflict, because it's more appropriate to.
Most of the calls I get, they'll say that, Rodney and planning referred me, or the police department referred me because they couldn't do anything. So it's usually referrals from other departments.
That makes sense.
But I did change the language, the most recent language I did update.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So Leah, before I forget, I was looking for a chat here that I could put in a chat, but there are 2 websites if you want to try to create a logo and come with some options. You upload the concept you want and the AI tool generates the logo for you. It's fun.
Oh, yeah, we're not changing the logo. Our logo is fine, and that's like over $100,000, because then you're talking fire trucks, uniforms.
Well, they were talking about it, but I guess we're not.
Yeah, I think they were talking about maybe doing something that the community can embrace separately.
Yeah.
It's the slogan that we're really focused on.
Okay.
The community with character wasn't as warm as we wanted it to be, and didn't really espouse the welcoming.
I can send you that email though of Ian, because he was looking for any suggestions. I'll send him.
Thank you. Okay. Be glad to help.
And interestingly enough, our logo is a tree. It's a double-sided cedar tree.
Yes, I remember.
So,
Yeah.
we're sticking
So
with
I
that
thought
one.
his slogan would be nice.
So Residence Academy, I know, you and Stephanie did some
Yes.
work.
And Leah.
And Leah, very much, but I think Stephanie's kind of our de facto lead on it, so
Yeah.
she's been doing it, but since she's not able today, we met to come up with a plan for next year's Citizens Academy, and we're talking through, and everything seems like it's going well. I think we readjusted the times a little bit, and the one ask that we'll have though is so to ease the burden on the 3 volunteers, the bench, essentially, I think there are going to be 9, right? 9 sessions, and the 3 of us who volunteered are planning to individually staff them, so separating it out so that we each take on 3. But it would be great, and I think the numbers work out if a CRB member can join one session that's not one of us 3, so that there are at least 2 CRB members at every session. So once if we haven't finalized the dates, then we're close to finalizing
Yes,
the dates.
January 4th through February 29th.
Yeah, so we can send out a sign up sheet, but we would humbly request that everybody try to take a day if you can.
Yeah, Sign Up Genius works great. So we use it for sports. So you can create a Sign Up Genius page and share with even other boards, and see if we can really bring representatives from boards to this great event. We know it's a winning program. So.
Great idea.
And my office, at the very beginning of October, I figured it was too early to ask people yet. The beginning of October, we go back to the people who are on the wait list, ask them to commit because they have first choice, and not that they can't sign up later if there's still space, but we give them that first opportunity. Then starting in mid-October, we'll go live with the online sign up, and just do first come, first served as it comes in. We did take the suggestions and modify the application to ask people if there was any accommodations they needed to better enjoy due to any disabilities that they may have. So you'll have that. And then we'll also have it in the November magazine for people to physically write in if they're not computer savvy, and then we'll just hand enter those. And then as soon as we get to 30, because 30 is the number that you all agreed on in your committee, as soon as we get to 30, then we'll start asking people if they'd like to be on the wait list for next year. And in December, we'll send a reminder, once we have the syllabus all done, we'll send a reminder, you've signed up for this, you're sure you're gonna do it, and if somebody drops out at that point, we'll pull off from the wait list. Again, in the order in which they were received. That sound good?
Great.
So I did send around the blank, it's a blank syllabus. It was the schedule that we had last year. And again, it's totally up to you what order you put things in. It is nice to have the municipal manager first because he does the grading. And the budget is almost always first as well because much as I hate to say it, the first session is always the best attended. And that is, the budget is really the thing that people know the very least about. And it's the thing that hits everybody hardest because they're paying for it. So, but then the rest is up to you. And then the last one is the one where the elected officials come and bring the, you know, we have some speakers, but then we have a little graduation and then there's the commendations passed out.
Business service award, can I just skip it right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, great. Any other new business? All good? Okay, great. We've completed the agenda, meeting is adjourned. So thank you.
Second, third, yeah.
If you complete the agenda, you don't have to vote on it.
Perfect.
There you go. I look at it. Can we put, work plan on the next agenda? Great, thank you. Thank you all, everyone.
You want me to, when
Thank you, bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
I mention it, like, call it out?
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just bullet point a list, because there's things that we lose again.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
elaborate or detailed. I
I'm doing yourself,
So
you
I'll-
shouldn't outdo yourself every
Send
time.
out, first pass at it. And then-
Sounds great.
Are you logging out?
Okay, Claire, I'm sorry, we were talking.
Oh, no, you're completely fine. It was just another thing I was thinking about the library.
Yeah.
For student council, we did the, like the high schoolers reading to the
Oh, yeah.